Hail, new subscribers! Ahsoka has come to an end. Joining me for its autopsy is Grand Admiral Sean. Welcome, Sean.
Hello, my friend.
I need your help, sir. I sat on my couch Tuesday evening, the closing credits of Ahsoka's 8th and final episode filling my screen, and a simple question came to mind. What was the point? Can you enlighten me?
Somehow, Thrawn returned. Other than that, I don't really. Yeah. So we have set the universe back to where it was at the end of the Rebels TV show. Ezra and Thrawn are back, and we now have a convenient excuse as to why none of the other Rebels characters are in the sequel trilogy. We've fixed a continuity gap. That's all we've done.
Sabine and Ahsoka won't stay on Peredia. They won't be there for a period of time into and during and beyond the sequels, will they? I wouldn't fund season 2 or film, but assuming those things come, they'll be back in the known galaxy, won't they?
Well, we have reports that Dave Filoni is currently working feverishly on season 2 now that the writer strike's over, I guess. I don't know. Somehow the writers returned as well. So Cowboy Cuck is back, and he's writing the whole new season 2 of the adventures of the ladies on the lady planet in the lady zone. More angsty, folded arms staring at each other like two exes trying to figure out if they want to get back together. And then, I don't know, they've already killed the man off screen, so there's nothing for Balon Skull to do in season 2. Yeah, maybe they'll come back, but at one point, when you and I sat down before this show started, we had some concerns about some things, but we're trying to remain optimistic. And but I've kind of come to this place with Disney, Lucasfilm, Star Wars, where and I kind of mentioned this when we were talking about some of the things early on that we saw in the season, where I've come to the point where I just assume the worst. Everything that I fear about bad storytelling and stupid ideas is really coming to pass. And so I think that if I take that lens of pessimism and doom, that they're going to come back after the sequels, and they will be on new adventures together in the new Rey movie. Of course, they're not going to get rid of them. Dave Filoni will never kill Ahsoka, and he will want to continue to tell stories with and about Ahsoka forever and ever and ever until he's dead. Or until they pry it away from him and fire his ass. So my thought is everything going forward is going to be Rey / Ahsoka party. Super friends, but with no guys. And that'll be a thing, right? And it'll be the Jedi adventures of the Lady Jedi in the Ladyverse of Lady Wars. So I think that's where we're headed. But Sabine and Ahsoka, and they're gonna have some adventure on this planet. We've had this sort of hinting or this indication that there's something else going on the planet. And of course, we'll get Shin, and Shin will be a part of this. And then we're either going to turn Shin, we're going to make her good. She's going to see the error of her ways, and her lightsaber will go from like orange to, I don't know, pink or something. And then they'll have a girl party, and then they'll all get back, and then it will be add Rey, bring back Rose. Sadly, they already killed Haldo, but maybe they'll go in the world between worlds and grab her off the ship before it flies through Snoke's cruiser, and then we can just have like the ultimate Golden Girls in Space party or something. I only say this half jokingly because it's like I look
Plausible.
at Kathleen Kennedy and I look at the people that she hires, and I look at what's happened to Dave Filoni over the last several years, and it's just a big sweaty bag of estrogen.
Does that leave the Mandalorian? If Sabine and Ahsoka remain on Peredia, who will deal with Thrawn prior to the sequel trilogy?
Bo-Katan, the Mandalorian, who is not Din Djarin. It'll be the Mandalorian that is Bo-Katan. So if you take what happened in season 3 of Mandalorian, and you take what we saw in season 1 of Ahsoka, then you say Dave's getting a movie, and he's writing season 2 of Ahsoka. Is season 2 of Ahsoka coming before the movie, or is the movie coming before season 2 of Ahsoka? We don't know. And is this movie a movie, or is this like the Rian Johnson trilogy? Because Kathleen Kennedy has a bad habit of announcing movies that never get made. So if all the pieces on the chessboard stay there, you're going to have the Acolyte.
Acolyte's
And so
next.
that's going to give us some Earth Goddess Force thing, which will inform something on this planet. I don't know. It's weird. Like they're setting something up, but they've got to kill Thrawn in order to prepare for the Force Awakens. But to my earlier absurdity point, we will sideline all those people in another galaxy having their own adventures. So we'll always have plenty of Ahsoka, right? Oh, Ahsoka, right? We'll have all this stuff. And we won't have to worry about why isn't she in the sequels, right? Because the two big questions everybody's asking. First one, where the hell is Luke Skywalker in the Ahsoka series? And the second question is, where the hell is Ahsoka in the sequel series? Somebody's going to have to figure something out. And we haven't heard mention of Luke Skywalker in this entire series, which I find patently absurd. In the words of Lebowski, there's a lot of strands in the old duder's head, and we got to figure out how to tie them all together and make something out of it. But it's all got to be wrapped up before we move into the full Force Awakens, or the short period of time before that movie happens. We have to establish why there's two militaries in the New Republic, why the New Republic is no longer on Coruscant, because according to this show, they're all on Coruscant, because they had moved off of Coruscant at some point, right? Because then we had to have the 5 lasers that blow up the 12 planets, that has the new Congress and all the weird whatever. Anyway, they got to figure it out, and it's gotta be smooth. Otherwise, just like this show, it's going to create way more questions than it answers.
I don't foresee Filoni having the patience to keep Ahsoka on Peridea. With Bo-Katan, that makes sense. That tracks. And then in the film, I assume Ahsoka will be a part of the film in the known galaxy, defeating Thrawn.
Yeah, but the only way you can make that work is if it's some kind of Pyrrhic victory, right? She's going to have to die killing Thrawn. So nerds back in the day used to sit around and be like, who'd win in a fight? Batman or Superman or whatever, right? And then they would make comics about it, right? Well, now we're going to have all the girls sitting around going, who's more powerful, Rey or Ahsoka? The problem is, Rey is the star of the sequel trilogy, and she's the new light that's risen to meet the darkness that is Emo Ren and his bulging pectorals. So where's Ahsoka, right? Wouldn't Ahsoka have been the perfect foil to an evil Skywalker heir?
Well,
I mean, what do we do, right?
She doesn't have to stay. Balon can awaken a threat on Peridea, but Ahsoka can leave Peridea. I could see her going back and forth, both ways, if you will.
Right. Right. That's that four non blonde shirt, man.
Yeah.
She wants it back. Yeah.
No jizz at that concert.
Oh, little jizz whaling there at the Lilith Fair. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, the going back and forth though between the galaxies, that becomes a failed plot point, because we spent so much time talking in this series, at least, about how Ezra's been gone for a decade and Thrawn's been gone for a decade or whatever, and it's been so hard, and looking for a way back to the planet, and everybody finally figured out that if you go to Stonehenge and you use the Quidditch ball, that gets you to the other galaxy, right? So okay, great. The Quidditch ball has been blown up, right? So we can't use the map from the Stonehenge to do the thing and whatever. And now the whales are going to be adverse to returning to their traditional death grounds or whatever it is because of the minefield. So unless
Well,
you have what's her name ship,
but you notice the minefield. There was no minefield when the Eye of Sion departed.
yeah, I don't know. No, so they've made this planet situation some kind of hurdle, right? It's some kind of difficult thing because they've set up this force that's on the planet. We don't know if it's good or evil or both. I mean, there's implications of the Mortis, mother, brother, father, sister, son, Holy Ghost, and all that crap. And so the reason why this thing hasn't invaded our galaxy or the known galaxy and overthrown everybody and ate all the Jedi or whatever is because of this difficulty of one, exiting the planet, and two, getting to where we are now. By creating some kind of contrivance where Ahsoka can just bounce between planets, it cheapens the journey. It cheapens the decade long absence of Ezra and Thrawn, and it also it just starts to call into question like, well, if it's such an evil or powerful force, like why can't it do what Ahsoka's doing? Or it would cause more problems, at least story wise, if you logically pursue these things. So that's why it took us 10 years to figure it out. We only found it out because the bad guys figured it out first and we followed them. And then most of the tools that we use to get there have been destroyed or in the possession of Thrawn, the Eye of Sauron or the Ring of whatever you want to call it this week. You can't have this like quantum leap show where Ahsoka's like hanging out at the Jedi Temple one weekend and then, oops, she slips and now she's in this other galaxy. And I don't, yeah, it wouldn't work. It would be weird. So she's got to finish whatever adventure she has in this current galaxy, or somehow Thrawn returns. No, so somehow she and the evil force or whatever are transported into our known galaxy, and then that becomes the movie event. Dave likes to do weird things because I remember everybody was like weirded out by the end of season 4 of Rebels because it had all these scenes in it that were incongruous and occurred way after the end of the show. They all occurred in the post Return of the Jedi era, and of course now a lot of that's been connected. We have Hera's son. We have the scene between Sabine and Ahsoka there on the platform that was recreated, right? So it's not that Dave is bound by any particular timeline. He could set his cinematic event anywhere, and he could set it after the trilogy, the most recent trilogy. But the world between world things, you can't really use that a lot either, because as we're finding out now, that just becomes absurd. You can't just say it's easy now to go to this other galaxy. Like, well, we found it now, so now we know how to get there every time. Like, I saved the route in my GPS. Like, no. So something has to happen in this galaxy. She has to finish this adventure, and that's why I feel like that's going to be season 2. And they may occasionally pop in and have like Hera and Ezra, maybe Digital Leia, sitting around a room, like pulling their hair out, trying to figure out how to find them, right? But maybe just so we can check in on the galaxy, the regular galaxy far, far away, not the other one that's far, far away. But she's got to do that. And then the movie's either got to be about Thrawn or the movie's got to be about the thing. I don't know. If you make the series about this part season 2 about Thrawn, then Thrawn's not going to be in the movie event. And then it's got to be the thing they bring back from the other galaxy. But you can't get too epic if you're going to set the season 2 and the movie before the sequel trilogy, because then if you watch these things in order, chronological order, you're like, whoa, that crazy force beast ghost thing lady with the teeth that they pull out of the tomb on the planet, and we totally rip off Lord of the Rings some more. and it becomes this big, epic, galaxy-challenging thing, and we all have to come together to destroy it. And then what? Snoke puts on a gold dress and says, "Oh, I've been the voice in your head, Kylo Ren." And then the whole time we're all going to be wondering, where the hell is Luke Skywalker? Up until the point where he tried to kill his nephew, Luke Skywalker was the dude, the brother of the lady who runs the military in the New Republic. But now he's suddenly absent. But then he'll show up in the last 3 minutes of The Force Awakens. He's built the academy. He has students, right? Princess Leia is now the director of military operations for the New Republic or whatever. And we got to get her to the point where she splits from the Republic, because that was the whole contrivance at the beginning of The Force Awakens, that she's somehow in charge of a third-party military organization that is defending the galaxy because the current government of the galaxy doesn't want a military, even though they have a military hierarchy. And then we still have to get about how did the First Order start, because we haven't figured that out either. We have a couple of Imperial remnants floating around, but they haven't joined together to do anything. So is that what Thrawn does? Thrawn comes back, sets up the First Order, croaks, and then the gardener shows up in his gold lame dress? Because at this point, also, spoiler alert for all the people who were hoping and had their fingers crossed, The World Between Worlds is not going to be used to erase the sequel trilogy. Dave Filoni is not going to do something. He's not a sleeper agent inside a Lucasfilm that's going to betray Kathleen Kennedy and somehow blow up the female universe. And Jon Favreau is just looking for his golden parachute at this point. So Star Wars is screwed. And so everything leads to the sequel trilogy. So now we've got all of these loose ends, right? Because, I don't know, apparently Mystery Box is the answer. So we've got people in one galaxy who are really important to the writer, Dave Filoni, because it's his character, it's his project. So that's the most important thing in the universe to him. But then you got Kathleen Kennedy across the hall who's like, Ray, girl power. And so what are we going to have, like, set up some kind of thing where we have to choose now? Like, is it Rey Skywalker or is it Ahsoka? Is Rey Skywalker in full retirement? Is she living on Tatooine and the old Lars homestead now and just like giving up the Jedi life? And now Ahsoka comes back and establishes the new Jedi Academy. I don't know. It's all terrible. All roads lead to terrible. But what's the point? Again, this is
Well, that was my question to you.
Well, I know, right? Well, but I know, but like, I mean, there is no point. I mean, obviously, there's no point to any of this crap at this point.
No.
Like, if you start looking around the Star Wars universe, it's like somebody took a handful of pieces out of 8 puzzle boxes and then put them in another box and then gave it to you without a picture and said, make this puzzle. And you're like, I have no frame of reference. And none of these pieces match. We don't have any coherent direction. There's no consistency in canon or lore or character histories and things like that. We don't have a clear path, and this is one of the things that, and we've talked about before on some of our other shows, and people have talked about, out in the ether, about how small the Star Wars universe is. And one of the reasons why we loved season 1 of The Mandalorian so much is because while it was in the Star Wars universe, it didn't have anything to do, really, at least on most levels, with anything that we had seen before. It was different characters exploring different adventures in a different area. And it's one of the reasons why we like Andor. We get developed characters who are having an adventure inside of this universe. And yes, some of their actions are directed towards a certain end, right? Because we know Andor has to be in a certain place at a certain time at the beginning of Rogue One. But you can't create anything truly epic, menacing, or otherwise mind-blowing because it diminishes the sequel trilogy. you try and set up the sequel trilogy as like there's this new great threat in the Force, right? The great darkness and the great light that rises, the dyad in the Force, and all that junk. Okay, and it's supposed to be this big thing, and it's supposed to be this big tragic tale of Luke Skywalker and what happened with his nephew and the Snoke, was for a minute this great dark side ruler person, and then it turns out no, he was just part of a jug of Snokes that got made on a planet, and then Palpatine returns, and and then Rey is his granddaughter. Oh, yada yada, right? Well, that all looks really boring when some of the rumors are true. You pull these characters from the Mortis trilogy or the Mortis series, I should say, not trilogy, but the Mortis episodes of Clone Wars, and mix that with some of the expanded universe materials from some of the novels. You're talking about a threat so great and so powerful in the Force and the universe that after you defeat that, it's like I can do anything, right? Like I killed the son, daughter, mother, father of the Force or whatever. Like I can do whatever I want. Snoke doesn't bother me, right? Kylo doesn't bother me, right? If Ahsoka comes out the other end of that, why isn't she the main character in the sequel trilogy? And if you just want to say, okay, the real revolution or the real betrayal or the real erasure of the sequel trilogy that's going to happen is Dave Filoni creating a bunch of product that ultimately installs Ahsoka Tano as the most powerful Force user, bestest Jedi ever in the galaxy, better than everybody who's ever come before, including Luke and Anakin and everybody, and even better than Rey. And that might be the big betrayal, right? Like Dave Filoni's girl power is better than Kathleen Kennedy's girl power. Take that, pew pew, right? Like it's all a road to perdition, man.
I understand. I share the frustration. We can review the series by discussing its personalities. Let's start with the main character, Sabine.
The main character. Yes, in the great tradition, the great modern Disney Lucasfilm tradition, the main character of your show is not the titular character.
She betrayed the galaxy, but
Mhm.
received absolution from her personal trainer, Ahsoka.
Correct.
She tried to use the Force, so as anticipated, in the end, her Force abilities maxed at 11.
Well, yeah.
Selfish, irresponsible, snarky, in a word, unlikable. Say a few words about Sabine.
Sabine looks like a Harley Quinn that you got from Wish. Powdery face paint and the pink hair and all the attitude and no responsibility. Not true to her character from Rebels. She's like a lot of these characters didn't show progression. She showed regression. The way that her character arc is dumb. It ends with a contrivance and a cop out. So they set her up and they say, okay, Ahsoka trained her, and then there was this falling out between them, and then it's like they try and play it up like Ahsoka knew that Sabine was going to be a danger to the universe. Stay with her. Don't leave her. You two work better together. I liked you better when you were a couple. And then she goes off and does her own thing, betrays the galaxy, lies to everybody about it, doesn't tell Ezra anything. And then at the end, they're standing there with Ahsoka, and she's like, "Your gamble paid off." Really? That's it? Y'all knew this was going to work out? Is it everybody in the galaxy clairvoyant now? Because, Thrawn's all like, I knew this would happen. Everybody knows. Everybody knows how it's all going to turn out. So her character is really lame. As soon as she showed up and they called her Padawan, it was like, okay, at the key moment in this series, in a meaningful, powerful way that will save the day, and it's like we were just waiting for it. And it was terrible. I'm going to force push Ezra onto the ship. 200 yards up in the air into a spaceship that's flying away. No, sorry.
Yes, she's responsible for the 2 deaths, the X-Wing pilots over Cetos, and every life lost to Thrawn. And as viewers, we're supposed to accept that absolution, that forgiveness, and move on. There's no amount of spin, and it's the show's responsibility based on what it wanted us to see. It hasn't justified forgiveness for Sabine.
Well, yeah, it all turned out right.
Yeah, but of course it didn't. They're stuck on Peredia. They're separated from Ezra again, and Thrawn has returned to the known galaxy. That to me, when Ahsoka said right where we need to be, I laughed. We're only judging you on what you've given us. If I follow my heart,
Mm-hmm.
but I put other people at risk, and they suffer and they die, as long as I followed my heart, it's okay.
Well, yeah, love is love, Jeff. She did it because. Oh, so let's just throw this out there.
Mhm.
She did it because she misses Ezra. Why does she miss Ezra so much? Why is Ezra this driving thing in her life?
Great question.
Right? We don't know why.
Facts not in evidence from Rebels.
They were a tight team. They fought together. They worked really well together. Ezra was kind of this leader. He was growing into this leader, and the speeches that he gave and the inspiration that he provided to others outside of their cell to rise up against the Empire. But there was, other than, and this is one of the things that I loved about Rebels, was you take a disparate group of individuals and you put them in a situation and you put them on a team to work together. And over time, as they learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, and as they learn to trust one another, that they become this family unit, right? You have a bunch of broken people who come from a bunch of broken places who have all kinds of trauma. And yeah, we can joke about it being Disney and how there's no real families, and how Star Wars there's no real families or whatever. But these people came together and they formed a family, right? They worked really well together. They achieved great things. They overcame great odds. So now that the war is over, the Empire is defeated. Palpatine is temporarily out of the picture. We've restored some kind of order, we think, in the galaxy, or some normalcy in the galaxy. So we have the New Republic and whatever. And she has some kind of role in the New Republic. We're not really clear, but she doesn't like it because she's always shirking her duties, as we saw in the first couple episodes. But there's no explanation as to why she's pining for Ezra, other than what she misses the old days of fighting and combat and killing stormtroopers. Like, because there's no romantic thing, right? We'll never have romance in Star Wars except in Andor, and that wasn't romance. That was a drunk one-nighter, but whatever. When they meet up in this show, it's awkward, but it clearly, like, we have to immediately establish it's a friend zone scenario. It makes her even a worse person when you look at it this way. She has all of her friends from the war: Hera, Ahsoka, Zeb, Chopper, right? Hera has a kid. Maybe she could be Auntie Sabine, right? But instead, she's so bent over the loss of one person from their team that she's willing to sacrifice the entire galaxy and everybody else remaining from that team just so she can see that person one more time. And then when she sees him, she's like, that's it? What is your motivation? If you made it like a tortured love thing, that would make way more sense, right?
It would, but Ezra was clearly in the friend zone.
Well, yeah. So that's my point. Like, what's good? This makes her just, she's just willing to just throw it all away so she can have one more adventure.
Well, I might be able to answer your question if the actress could make more than one facial expression.
We had a conversation. You bring up a good point. We had a conversation in one of our previous podcasts, and you should probably go back and listen to all of them, audience, please. the conversation was about whose responsibility is it for these bad performances. And we've talked about bad performances in the sequel trilogy, other Star Wars shows like Kenobi. I've said it's the director's fault for the most part because they're the manager, right? They're a manager on duty when it comes to this stuff. They have all of these people around them running the cameras and everything. They have the actors and they have the costume department, whatever, and they all come together. And the director ultimately says at the end of the shoot, we have the version that I want for the final product. Okay. But these shows, they have like 7 different directors. And we still get the same crappy performances out of these actors. I've watched enough Inside the Actor Studio and other interviews, behind the scenes things or whatever, where, people say, oh, I love working with this director. Like he brought out the best in me or she brought out the best in me. And, and I gave this master performance and I owe my Oscar to this director, whatever. Right? Sometimes they say that. But these actors and actresses gave the same crappy performances over 8 episodes with 7 or 6 different directors. I forget how many directors are employed in this series. I'm starting to wonder, is it the actors? These shows are on tighter shooting schedules, tighter budgets. The directors can't be like, yeah, we'll come back tomorrow and try it again, right? Or, well, we'll shoot it all, but tomorrow I want to shoot it again at a different time of day so I get the golden hour or whatever, right? Can't do that stuff. These things are on a smaller scale. And so the actors just like mail it in. And eventually the director's like, well, I got to move on, right? I got to go on to the next scene. I got to go to the next whatever, right? Like we're behind schedule. And so they just do the best with what they've got at that point. I don't know. I'm trying to, maybe blame just goes all the way around. But one director, one film being bad, I could probably blame the director. But an entire series with 7 directors and all the performances being bad, I'm kind of starting to push it on these actors now. And she's not the only one. It's the same. Like you could copy and paste any scene with any of these characters into any episode and any other scene, and you probably wouldn't have noticed because they're all striking the same pose, right? They all look like they're constipated or they're being introspective or whatever, and they deliver all their lines the same way. I give up.
Next, Ahsoka, whose never before seen abilities included water breathing, whale song, and quick change.
Quick change.
I'll borrow from the Oral Knots latest video. It's hilarious.
It's magnificent. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. We don't normally push other channels on this channel, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Yeah.
Adds slow-mo, arm folding, and devious smirk.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the Ahsoka show. Tune in next year for season whatever. It's not your grandfather's Ahsoka. Again, this character, unrecognizable. There's a lot. You got to wade through the shill on the internet right now about the series. Put on your hip boots. And
I did a video not too long ago about Ahsoka fans scaring YouTubers. Yes, there's a very, very vocal, very outspoken, very active small group.
But they call us man babies for defending Luke Skywalker, our childhood hero. But anyway, the shills are all saying, well, she's older now and she's been through some stuff. But the Ahsoka Tano that I got in Rebels, who is, I don't know, older, seen some things, had some trauma, and is now a founder of the rebellion as the Fulcrum agent. She's got way more personality and represents more earlier cartoon iteration into Clone Wars than the Rosario Dawson thing. Now, I'm going to say something controversial. If you're easily triggered, I don't know, go call your therapist or whatever. I never wanted Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. Okay, this whole thing on the internet, this is where the internet is good for like maybe 2 or 3 things, and some of the trash that comes out of the internet are again these mobs of people who demand these things. Um, some guy somewhere photoshopped Rosario Dawson with an orange face, and he was like, "This is going to be the greatest Ahsoka ever." And then it caught fire, right? It went over all the socials, and then Rosario saw it on Twitter, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm down." And then it became fait accompli, right? And I don't think she looks good. I mean, she's passable. Like, she's passable. I've said this in other shows. She's passable. If you squint, you have about 4 beers, and you kind of look at her sideways. She's Ahsoka. Um, but however they're making her act in this show, it is not the character of Ahsoka, and there's no through line there. It almost feels like a reboot. It's Daniel Craig. It's the new Bond. It's not the old Bond, right? I feel like it's in that realm.
Well, at that point, that's just cope, honestly. In a fictional galaxy, we as viewers rely on what we've seen, and so it's very important to have continuity. It's jarring, and this is a Disney Lucasfilm hallmark. It's jarring to be away from a character and then to come back and be dealing with a completely different personality. Mannerisms, all completely different. And then you have the shills with the cope. Well, you're doing the writer's work for them. That's
Exactly.
poor writing because it's not a real world situation. She didn't go on walkabout. She didn't lose relatives in the war. In a fictional galaxy, there's no justification. You've given us nothing, no reason. You haven't explained why she would be different, and she is quite different. And I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. The whole thing is her character. I can forgive Rosario Dawson not being the best choice for Ahsoka physically, whatever. But Rosario Dawson, and this is the thing that makes me the most mad about her portrayal of Ahsoka Tano, is that Rosario Dawson is an excellent actress. She could be Ahsoka. The other thing is the writing and the directing. And you would think Dave Filoni and his cowboy hat would have figured out at some point, maybe the way he wrote it in his head and the way Rosario's doing it on TV is not the same thing, and then maybe he should step in. This is where he needs to be more Lucas. He needs to step in with the director and be like, "Look, here's the deal. I need you to go watch all the Clone Wars episodes before you continue filming this episode." Right? Because clearly you're not getting it. You're not getting my character. You're not getting her story. You're not getting her personality. And then you also take Rosario and you put her in the trailer and you go, "Look, I need you to watch all the episodes too, because clearly you're not doing it either. If everybody does their homework, then we're going to come back together and we're going to talk about it." But none of that happened. Whatever scenario it is, whether it's the director being lazy, the actor being lazy, or Dave being hands off at the wrong time.
Dave wanted this for Ahsoka. This is his ideal conception of Ahsoka. I have no doubt.
Then he's a worse writer than I thought.
Absolutely. He's shown us a progression with each series. He's wanted to make Ahsoka older, wiser, more powerful, more mature. And so this really, honestly, this was him. And the same is true for Sabine. We just talked about Sabine. This is how he envisions the characters, and it's terrible. 100% Filoni.
Just to step back and kick the dead horse, that's Sabine. Her character, if you look at her character through Clone Wars and in Rebels, she was more mature at the end of Rebels than she was in the Ahsoka series. She had learned the lesson of responsibility, the consequences of good intentions, the effects of her actions, the arrogance of thinking you can play the Empire, and the disastrous results of that.
The price of collaboration. Yep.
Yeah. All these things, right? And this is why at the end she didn't want to be the leader of Mandalore. She didn't want the dark saber. She didn't want to be the Mandalorian, right, with the dark saber and lead the people of Mandalore because she knew she wasn't worthy of the title. No pride, pure stoicism and understanding who you are, what your limitations are, how to live within those things, and being okay with it. And then we get, yeah, I'm just going to sell out the universe so I can see my BFF. Stupid regression. Ahsoka, same thing. I'm so smart and wise because I left the Jedi Order, but I'm going to act like a Jedi because I'm going to be the savior of the galaxy lightsaber fighting everybody every 20 minutes. If you're going to leave the Order and not be a Jedi, then put down the damn lightsabers. You don't get to be a general anymore. This whole story arc doesn't make any sense. I'm the last best hope for the universe. No, Luke Skywalker is chilling in a hut. Why don't you go call him? Bro, there's these rogue Jedi and this crazy Night Sister, and they're trying to bring some crazy admiral dude out of retirement to come destroy the galaxy after you guys just finished killing the Emperor. You should check this out. You're a Jedi. I'm sure he'd be like, hell yeah, I'll answer the call. I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm an effing hero. But no, it's like when you wake up from a dream and you're like, yeah, I was in this house and I knew it was my house in the dream, but it wasn't my house because it was a completely different house. But in my dream, I knew it was my house. Well, I feel like this is what Star Wars is. It's a bad dream, and I'm looking at it. I'm going, I know it's Star Wars because it's Star Wars, but when I start talking about it, it's really not Star Wars. It's something else.
It's poor storytelling. Watching a video 2 days ago comparing Ahsoka to Andor. The point was made, Andor is a great story that's set in the Star Wars galaxy. Ahsoka, it's a poor story dependent upon the Star Wars galaxy. Self-referential. On the one hand, it assumes that you've watched Rebels and the Clone Wars. On the other hand, it completely changes the characters from those shows, so it doesn't work either way. As a normie, I wouldn't get it. 8 episodes, I still don't know why Ezra matters or why I should care about Ezra.
Yeah, the entire galaxy was destroyed. The Jedi Order was destroyed. Evil reigns simply because somebody was too attached to somebody. Right? So Anakin had his Padme problem and plunged it into the Imperium and the Dark Times and all that stuff, right? Now, Ahsoka is supposed to have learned from Anakin something in the World Between Worlds. We're not really sure what it was, but she came out as Ahsoka the White, and we're just going to rip off the Lord of the Rings every chance we get in this show. Shouldn't she have imparted that lesson to Sabine when she was the Padawan? Let me tell you the story. Let me tell you the tragedy of Darth Vader, the whatever, right? My old boss fell in love with this girl. Don't get hung up on Ezra. The continuity issues, the Jedi-ness of her non-Jedi-ness. She's aware, right? She's aware of what Anakin Skywalker became, right? She knows who Darth Vader is. She has spent all of her time, I'm assuming, except for that time as she was hanging out with the Martez sisters, she spent all of her time fighting the Empire, undoing what Anakin Skywalker has done. And she fails to mention that to Sabine. Hey, this attachment thing you have for Ezra is really going to screw up stuff. Let it go, right? People die. You're going to die. Why? None of this makes any sense. And and it's not like George sold it, the writing group got a hold of it, some third century poetry major from Wesleyan wrote a book about it, and then now it's like a different character. No, this is Dave effing Loney, okay? And it's his character that he created and has written for the last 20 years now. And
Almost.
almost,
Mhm.
and yet somehow Palpatine returned. No, but yet somehow, like, you can't get it right. Like, you can't even the guy. I don't. I mean, what does he know so much Star Wars? It gets in the way of what he knows about Star Wars. Like, did he forget his own headcanon for his own freaking character?
He did. This is a theme with Disney. Disney promotes narcissism, lack of accountability, characters making selfish, self-centered, awful, immature decisions, and being told that they've done the right thing and no consequences. No, no, not that's not leadership. In the same breath as the leader she was destined to be, Ahsoka, the leader Sabine, the leader she was. Leadership is not about short-sighted selfishness. It's about long-term accountability.
Hmm.
It's about putting the many ahead of the me. Disney promotes immaturity. This is a theme. You see it in a lot of their productions nowadays. It's awful.
And then the one person who actually asks questions is portrayed as an a-hole and someone who needs to be rebuked and destroyed and otherwise castigated.
The democratically elected official.
The
Yes.
representative of his people who's trying to seek accountability for the loss of resources, manpower, and equipment. Um, Usually, we call that oversight, so that the military doesn't do stuff like, oh, I don't know, run rampant and cause a junta or whatever. But
Absolutely. Yeah,
we're
he'll
going to
will
Hera-splain to him what's going on.
Okay, are we ready to talk about Hera?
Yes, old Hera and her steampunk goggles
Yes.
and leather
Yeah.
jacket.
Yeah.
I believe I
Insecure and needs to remind everyone that she's a general.
right.
Uh, Argumentative, reckless, led a failed mission to Cetos that
And
resulted
killed.
in 2 deaths, but
Yep.
no consequences.
Hmm.
Your opinion of Hera?
Yeah, again, not the Hera that I remember from Rebels. Hera was the mom. While she was a hard fighter, she was still very warm, caring, and maternal, deeply concerned about the safety of her crew. Every time a soldier was lost under her command, it affected her. She's now a mother, but instead, her connection to her emotional center and her maternal instincts from the Rebel series are completely gone. They've been completely torn out of this character now. Now she's like, I'm a boss and I'll do what I want. Wow, you're a mom. Your kid's coming to you with his hopes and dreams and aspirations for his future. He's all like, I want to be a Jedi, mom. She's like, sure you do. Ruffle your hair. I'm a general, you know. Does she make him call her general instead of mom? Again, I talked about her costuming and stuff in our first discussion about this, and her character in the first couple of episodes was sort of this bemused onlooker to the lovers' quarrel between Sabine and Ahsoka. But as she became more actively involved in the show, she's turned into this really arrogant caricature of this driven, careerist, angry feminist. These characters, if you look at still photos, you're like, oh, those are my people from that show. But then you listen to them talk, and you're like, I don't know what's going on here. And she's just another one of these characters. Like we're going to go down this list, and I'm going to start to sound like a broken record. They're all this way, and it's really bizarre because they're all written by the same guy who created all of them, except for Thrawn. And even then, Filoni wrote the most recent iteration of Thrawn in the cartoon. We show up in this series. We just a couple of years ago got season 7 of Clone Wars, so we got recent Ahsoka, right? We just had Rebels a few years before that, where we got the character Hera. We got that character. We got Ezra. We got the Filoni version of Thrawn, right? This was all just a couple of years ago. It's these people's. I mean, we do this for fun. This is our hobby. This is what we love. These people get paid to sit in a room all day and think about Star Wars and talk about Star Wars. It's not like Ridley Scott, who goes off and makes like 20 different movies, and then somebody's like, "Hey, can you come back and make another Alien movie or whatever?" he's like, yeah, sure, sounds great. What were we doing in the last one? That was 30 years ago, right? It's not like that. These people live at Star Wars headquarters in Star Wars town, and their job title is Star Wars people. And they think about Star Wars, they write about Star Wars, they talk about Star Wars, they build Star Wars, they make Star Wars, they produce it, design it. It's not like they're coming out of retirement. Okay, so why is this so weird? Why is it so different? And it's not just because, oh, it's the live action is causing the problem. It's just, you can never make it the same as cartoons. Well, first of all, you get Ashley Eckstein. Okay. That'll make it like the cartoon. We could voice over Darth Maul, but we can't voice over Rosario Dawson with Ashley Eckstein's voice. I'm sorry, is that too much work? Does that cost too much? Because you're not spending the money on the damn special effects of the costumes. So I'm being very undued right now. So I need to reel it in. But I'm upset about this because I really enjoyed Rebels and I really enjoyed the Clone Wars cartoons. These are all things that these characters and these backstories are things I know and have enjoyed for many, many years. And then I get this steaming pile on a plate and they're like, look, it's the thing you loved. And I'm like, that is not even close. And then people attack us for saying these things like, oh, you're just haters and you're this and you're that. It's like, no. It's not like, somebody rolled in off the street, never seen Star Wars, don't know what Star Wars is, couldn't tell you what a Star War it was if it came up and bit me. And I watched this show and I'm like, this show's dumb. And people will be like, okay, you don't get it because you don't have the context or whatever. Like, okay, I can understand that kind of criticism. You can't criticize us for not liking the show because we know Star Wars. And then you come up with this crap, and then you're like, you should just be happy you're getting Star Wars on TV. I'd rather wait the 10, 15 years between trilogies or whatever and have some people think about stuff like George Lucas did and try and write a good story than just saying like, oh, it's Tuesday, we got to get another episode of the Girl Power out, right? That happens to have a TIE fighter in the background, so they can call it Star Wars. I'm at a point right now where I'm just like, better give me Andor season 2 real fast because I'm about to pull the plug on all of it. So
yeah, no one could blame you. These are mistakes and problems that plague all of Disney's productions, or the vast majority lately. So this to me is not a Star Wars issue, though obviously that's the IP that we love, the one that we care about. But I see it across the board with Disney. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's Marvel, it's Indiana Jones, it's all the legacy IPs of Disney. I mean, we're seeing it with the Snow White thing. They just keep going, man. Just keep going. It's the parent company's problem. But you're right, though. Dave Filoni does know better, and I challenge anyone to go back, listen to him talk about Star Wars in the Mandalorian Gallery series, the first one. Listen to him talk about his time with George Lucas, lore, and the galaxy and the characters and the story, the writing, the plot, the themes, the motivations, right? This guy knows stuff and the evidence is there. And then you compare that to the speech that he gave at the National Women's whatever conference where he got the award and the stuff he was saying about being a repentant male who's focused on creating female characters that I guess are supposed to absolve him of his sins of being male, things that he perceives as mistakes when he was younger. There is a very strange dichotomy there. You listen to that speech and then you go back and you listen to his art, his interviews and his discussions on Star Wars. And maybe it is a directive from above. Maybe it's him just kind of being the weatherman and checking out which way the wind's blowing and figuring out, okay, if I don't hop on this trend that I am going to be left behind and I'm going to be one of these people that just suddenly disappears from Hollywood. And Hollywood will sink you and disappear you faster than anything. And if you want to stay relevant and hot and get jobs and be the talk of the town, you got to do what people want, what producers want, what studios want, what investors want. And woke or progressive, or use whatever word you want for it, that agenda or policy,
Mhm.
that pendulum has swung all the way in that direction. Eventually, at some point in Hollywood, it's going to go the other way. It's always the correction. Disney is going to be patient zero for that. Disney, the company, is going to be a patient zero for that. We're already seeing their stock and all this other stuff, and the lack of attendance to the parks and the backlash in the public sphere and the political sphere and all these other things. Eventually, Disney's going to be like, nope, we're done with this. We're scrapping these plans. We're finished. We need to make money, because that's ultimately what we are. We're a business. We need to make money. And so I don't know if Star Wars is going to survive long enough to see that correction or whatever, but I think that Dave Filoni he could be and can be a great artist, but unfortunately he's also a political animal. And I think that is really infecting the product that he's creating. And at some point, the bad product is going to come back and bite him. And now we don't want you to write any characters anymore. Star Wars has gotten so bad that I can see why people are speculating about the involvement of AI in it. But I also think that we better get worried, because if it gets any worse with the humans writing it, they might try AI, and then it's gonna be really weird, because if it gets better with AI, who knows what we're in for?
I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss the possibility that it's already in use. But let's get back to our characters. Ezra, the dude,
Yes, the Big Lebowski.
beard, bathrobe, contributed nothing of value to the sisterhood. Only by Sabine's short-sighted selfishness was he rescued. Um, Off-screen thief of stormtrooper armor and Imperial shuttles. Did Ezra force push his way into your heart?
Oh, yeah. I know I would betray the galaxy to go find him in a trailer park. Yeah. He is probably, personality wise and portrayal by said actor in charge of bringing Ezra to life, is probably the closest to any previous iteration of any of the characters. Upbeat, trying to stay positive, trying to, make the best of a bad situation guy. He always had kind of a self-deprecating humor a little bit. And so you got that. You got the feel from him in the show that it was indeed Ezra. And it was nice that we didn't have to have him in his old costume, right? And we didn't have to have him with his old haircut and whatever, right? So he's grown up. He's got the beard and the longer hair. He's the dude. But he's just a walking MacGuffin. Right? Everybody was like, well, we could just leave Thrawn in the other galaxy. That's great, right? He can't hurt us from there. But we got to go get Ezra. Well, and then, of course, then you open that can of worms, right? We don't know what part he has to play in this drama yet. And I don't, who knows if we're ever going to find out, because he also has the unfortunate circumstance of being a male character in modern Disney Star Wars. So he will probably be told by Hera that he did something wrong. But I don't understand. There's a couple things I don't understand about him in the series. One is when they first get together, or when they first find him and they have the first battle. Sabine, making a surprisingly self-aware decision, wants to hand her lightsaber over to him in the battle, because she knows she's not as good with it as he is. She is not a Jedi, or not as close to being a Jedi as he is, and she feels more comfortable with her blaster. So just take the lightsaber, bro. And he's like, no, I'm going to do my hand push jujitsu dude moves. And so he does his Tai Chi hand push thing. But then he ultimately builds himself a lightsaber. Do you need it or not? And if you do, why don't you take your old one back? But of course, that would be taking power away from a girl character, so we can't do that. Of the characters, I mean, initially his character, just like Ahsoka in Clone Wars, initially his character Rebels was annoying and rubbed me the wrong way. But I did enjoy his character progression through the series, and he got better, and I liked him. He wasn't my favorite character on the show, but he wasn't my least favorite either. But I don't know what he's doing in this show other than being the reason, air quotes, for everybody getting to where they need to be on the game board. So anyway, so Ezra is the least worst, I guess, of all the previous characters that we're familiar with in the Star Wars universe. But again, he serves no real purpose in any of it except he's home now, and I guess that's important for reasons.
Next up, Morgan, surprise Night Sister, the mastermind behind Thrawn's return, the one person who deserved the Empire's loyalty and protection, sacrificed for no good reason. She built the Eye of Sion, opened the Golden Snitch, but Thrawn would rather travel with the ladies in red than his closest, most effective ally. Thoughts on Morgan?
Yeah, I'm deeply disappointed in what they did with her character, for all the reasons you just stated. She was an interesting tease in the Mandalorian series. This discussion about how she's rebuilding fleets or used to build fleets or is somehow involved in the Imperial Remnant and restoring the Empire, and so you got that little bit of background about her, and she gets arrested, whatever, and then of course we rescue her at the beginning of the show, and she and several other characters had a lot of potential in this show, but again, the writing doesn't make any sense for the reasons you stated. She is the one who executed the plan successfully, brought all the pieces together, managed those pieces to find the map or whatever to get to Thrawn and build the ship to get her there and ultimately release him from his exile. And to your point, Thrawn, who we thought was this 3D chess player who understood things but also appreciated loyalty. Again, if you read the old books, the original books, not the current watered down versions, but the original books, like the whole thing about him was it was about loyalty and trust. Here he's just offhandedly, sacrificing his most loyal and, like you say, his most effective or his most competent subordinate. And he's like, well, you're a Night Sister now, and you got that magic and whatever. You gotta go stand over there and do the fight, make the things, and stop Ahsoka. And then, of course, ultimately she doesn't. And it's just, I don't know. It was a bad payoff because she was a very interesting character. She's one of the few, and the theme here that I have, the thing that for me in this show is all the new characters they created, or except for maybe the "oh no you didn't" guy. All the new characters in this particular show for this galaxy are interesting. We'll get to Balon and Shin, but and we probably shouldn't have expected them to be a long-term villain in any of this, knowing where all this is headed. But maybe we could get a couple of good seasons out of this person. And then no, you mentioned this in some of your your review videos. There's a lot of mystery box, not a lot of payoff.
I think there was a ceiling on her potential, but I definitely don't think that the show approached it. So, Grand Admiral Thrawn, no preamble necessary. How disappointed were you?
To paraphrase the author Terry Pratchett, to be any more disappointed would have required special training. I had sent a meme to our group chat about the character of Thrawn, and and it's pictures of Thrawn from the various iterations, and next to it, is a board game, and it shows Thrawn from the original Timothy Zahn novels from the 90s, and it's got the 3D chessboard, and then it works its way down to tic-tac-toe in the current show. And that couldn't be more true. Wildly disappointed. This is waiting all year for Christmas morning, and your parents have promised you the best Christmas ever, and you get socks. Dave gave us socks. One of the finest expanded universe characters ever created, but we have been gradually dumbing him down. I was not completely upset about his appearance in Rebels. Again, it was not the Thrawn we knew. I, like a lot of people, I did the deal with the devil, right? I accepted it because I wanted him to be in the canonical universe. So here we've got Dad Bod Thrawn, who makes really poor decisions about everything and then acts like it's all going according to plan. And that's not Thrawn. He doesn't look like Thrawn. He doesn't act like Thrawn. Take one of my favorite characters of all time in Star Wars and you just make a crappy caricature of him. And everybody's like, oh my God, it's so amazing. All the shills again out there shoveling for Disney. And it's just like, this is not amazing at all, period. End of sentence.
Lars Mikkelsen did not capture Thrawn's physical presence. And Lucasfilm makeup, costumes, special effects teams did him no favors, but physically not Thrawn, and yet the physical representation was the best part of the character. Grand Admiral Thrawn is definitely a top 10 villain, possibly a top 5 villain in the Star Wars galaxy. And in this show, he was an idiot. Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney, they have a real problem. Their adolescent, immature style of writing prevents intelligent, frightening villains. Thrawn was foolish, claiming victory and never actually gaining victory. If running away from 3 Jedi with a Star Destroyer and a full complement of stormtroopers and TIE fighters is a victory, yeah, then I guess I don't understand the IP. What was Thrawn doing for 10 years if not tracking down and killing Ezra? At the beginning, we're led to believe his numbers have dwindled. The implication being there's something out there in the wild, there's something happening on this planet that's preventing him from getting to Ezra and killing his men, and that his situation is dire. The damaged Star Destroyer, the strange armor worn by the stormtroopers. But in the end, that's not the case. None of those things are true. He has thousands of troops, hundreds of TIE fighters. He just doesn't know how to use them.
Yeah, and if that's the case, how did Ezra get off the ship? This is the thing that again made me so angry about the end of this show. He takes Balin's shuttlecraft, dressed as one of these whatever troopers, the Night Sister Death Walker troopers, right? He hides in the stormtrooper outfit. He gets in this thing and steals it, and just he's able to leave a Star Destroyer. First of all, he's able to hide on it long enough for them to make the journey. Then when they come out of hyperspace, they're just, I don't know what, gonna let them fly off. They used to have tractor beams on Star Destroyers. Maybe his is broken. Okay. I'm not trying to do the writing for the dudes, but really he's just gonna get away. No pursuit. But it's all brushed off. It's like, oh, look, it's Ezra and Hera. And Hera's still being awkward and weird. You could have taken half the crap in the first 3 episodes of all the ladies staring at each other, cut it out, taken those saved minutes, and maybe put in a decent escape scene Make it a running battle off the ship, right? Make Ezra have to chop and slice and hack and whatever. Maybe he has some good dialogue with Thrawn. Maybe they will back and forth before he gets, But no. Somehow Ezra's returned.
They wanted the emotional scene. And at some points in the series, they wanted a visual. And they didn't care how they got what they wanted. There are many, many examples of this writing in the finale. 3 Jedi fighting the zombie troopers, but they had fought their way across a large room of stormtroopers who, like the Kenobi series, were willing to be sliced down. Okay, why they're closing quarters with Jedi, it's beyond me. And then once they've all been cut down and Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra move to the far side of the room, then the troopers are reanimated. But at that point, they don't matter because Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra are trying to get out of the room, and they now have full access to the stairwell where they are headed, and yet they choose to turn around and fight the zombie troopers for a while to give us a visual. Right? We're fighting zombie stormtroopers. Oh, how cool. Ezra needs to be rescued again. Predictable. And then they use blast doors, which should have been closed by Thrawn, to prevent them, or at least slow them from climbing the tower. So they wanted the fight against the zombie troopers. And it's small tweaks. It's just a little bit of thought in the writing, and you can still have that. You can still get your visual, you get the same result, but it makes sense in the context of the story. Later, when you have 2 zombie death troopers, so reverse it, why are the Jedi closing the space to fight up close? They have the Force. Ezra's used Force push about 1,000 times, but no, we're going to fight melee style. Okay, we've got to have this fight against the Death Troopers. Well, then have it in the hallway with the Death Troopers blocking their advance. So then close quarters are necessary. It can't happen any other way because they're in the way. Just with a little bit of thought, you can have your cake and eat it too. The writing, the attention to detail, it's so poor. I could go on, but we're straying away from Grand Admiral Thrawn. They wanted certain things from Thrawn. They wanted Thrawn to say that he'd won approximately 18 times. They wanted him to be walking through a legion of stormtroopers. They wanted him standing in a hangar as TIE fighters took off to either side of him. They wanted him standing at a tactical display. But they just didn't put any thought into what would be happening and why he would be doing these things. Last thought, again, I've taken us off course, but 2 TIE fighters, really? Really? When we can see racks of TIE fighters behind you. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you're familiar with Star Destroyers and the Empire, you know that they have hundreds of TIE fighters on board. He has resources, all of his resources. He just doesn't know how to use them. And then he's claiming that he won.
You are correct. The tactical aspects in this episode don't make any sense based on what we've seen versus what we were told. And like you say, with just a few tweaks in the writing, could have made a lot more sense. We see Rax TIE fighters in the ship. Thrawn mentions that he's low on resources, but he doesn't tell you what those resources are. If Morgan shows up with Balon and Shin, and Thrawn is like, I am really glad you guys showed up. Like, your timing is amazing because we got problems on this planet. And he explains to you whatever the thing is, right? Whatever the thing out there is. And you could very much use that as illustrating with the character of Balon, like why he's here, what is calling him. He's like, this is the clue I've been looking for, or whatever. And maybe he says, when we got here, the ship was damaged from the whales grabbing it and tearing it through space. We got it working as best we could, and then we got attacked by the whatever, right? and I lost a significant portion of my crew, and we barely were able to fight it off. And then we discovered these Night Sisters, and we cut a deal, and now here we are. We're hanging on. And so I made a deal with these ladies. So now that you're all here to get me, here's what we got to do. We got to move the stuff from the thing into the ship, and then we got to get out of here. But we also got to make sure that we stop the Jedi from stopping us from leaving. And we also got to watch our six, because the evil thing over the next hill is going to come back. That shows me that Thrawn is A, fully aware of the situation, B, has a reason now to be stingy with his resources because he's lost a lot, and now he only has a little bit left. And because he is the honorable villain that we know him to be, he's made a deal with the Night Sisters. He's going to keep it. So he's got to reserve a portion of his personnel to move the caskets, right? Maybe he doesn't have enough pilots. Yeah, I got all these damn TIE fighters, but half my pilots are dead. Whatever. These are things that over 8 episodes, through small conversations between characters, maybe an exposition here or there, or possibly a flashback, you can explain all this stuff away, and Thrawn doesn't look like a complete idiot, or the choices that he makes in the moment make a lot more sense. But like you say, based on what we see and hear, he's like, I don't have any resources. Like, you got a Star Destroyer, 1,000 stormtroopers, and 100 TIE fighters, and you send out 10 people and 2 dropships to fight 3 Jedi. Explain to me why you're keeping so many people in reserve. You know what would have been great is if Thrawn gave a little speech there where he's talking about, I'm Grand Admiral Thrawn, Lord King, warrior of the Empire, right hand of the Emperor, and all stuff, and like, I have victories over the, and list off your resume, right? Now have him say, I didn't know what fear was until I landed on this planet. That's some heavy stuff, right? Thrawn's out kicking and taking names all across the galaxy, and the only reason why he doesn't win the war against the rebellion is because the damn space whales and Ezra Bridger. And then have Balon Skull go, tell me more about this, because I've been hearing a voice from across the galaxy. Oh, is it the same thing, brother? Now we're putting some pieces together. You still don't have to show it, right? Save it for season 2, whatever. Or maybe make the last scene of the last episode showing the catacomb where it's hiding, or the cave that it lives in, or the, whatever, the castle on the hill, whatever. That little tweak of foreshadowing, that little ooh, and here's your cliffhanger, right? But we didn't get any of that again. We just made Thrawn look dumb. He's like, I'll send 1 stormtrooper to fight a legion of crab people in a trailer park with 3 Jedi. And I'll leave these other 900 to stand here next to me and look awesome. Like, none of it makes any sense. I am not a general. I don't play one on TV. I know his tactics are stupid. And he's supposed to be a Grand Admiral and the greatest military mind in the known galaxy, and maybe 2 other galaxies that we're not even aware of yet. And he's just silly, just dumb. And then, like you say, you throw in the physical representation of him. He is not intimidating in any way. He's not regal. He's not menacing. He just looked like Elon Musk in the Blue Man Group.
You needed a younger actor playing older, as opposed to an older actor playing older. There's a physicality to Thrawn. He's intimidating. When Lars Mikkelsen came off the Star Destroyer, I'm sorry.
Apparently the limited resources includes the gym on the Star Destroyer,
right, yeah. but not the buffet.
But not yes, the food processes are working perfectly. The gym, however, was damaged in the trip. Yes.
Right. I'll be criticized. I'll be accused of cruelty and insensitivity. I'm sorry, fictional galaxy. So we're talking about casting here. If we're casting Michael Jordan in a film, don't pick me to play the role. I'm sorry. I'm not. No offense to Lars Mikkelsen, but he's not Thrawn. And that is what we're pointing out.
Yeah. Again, this is another one where we could have used his voice, no problem, right? Because another great thing about Thrawn is that he doesn't. well, great thing. Another interesting aspect of Thrawn is that the thing that makes him so menacing and intimidating and so effective is that he's not verbose. He is a thinker. He's an observer. He analyzes you. He analyzes your tactics. He analyzes your culture. Makes all these calculations in his head, but he doesn't talk a lot because he's paying attention to stuff. And so when he speaks, it's important, but he's also uses an economy of words. And so you can get away with dubbing him with Mickelson's voice, so he's consistent with the cartoon. But yeah, find somebody that looks more like the character. There's, like you said, there's so many choices that were made there that if any one of them was done incorrectly would have broken the illusion of Thrawn, but they were all done incorrectly. So we got Wish Thrawn again.
Finally, Balon and Shin, the most interesting characters in the series, totally neglected on the road to nowhere. They disappear from the series after episode 7. The last scenes, Shin riding to the bandit camp and Balon, as you put it, looking into Mordor.
Well, yeah, he's riding off into a Lord of the Rings novel at this point. He's standing there at the statues of the elders of Minas Tirith or whatever, and it's like the kings, the old kings of the West. And all. Anyway, it's just there's a lot of bad plagiarism of Tolkien in this series, and that was the most egregious. And that was more of the plagiarism of Peter Jackson and his interpretation of Tolkien. But he is Balon Skull, the character, is the bright point in this series. His character was fascinating, nuanced. We complain a lot about the mystery box. His character had the right kind of mystery about him, and we felt as we moved along, the conversations between him and Shin were there was a little more revealed every time. There wasn't enough of that. There could have been way more of these conversations that would have fleshed out these characters even more. But we got these tantalizing bits. The guy who's trying to solve the problem of the eternal struggle between good and evil, which it's a pretty big task, right? You're talking about a cycle that has been going on since the beginning of time and will continue to go on until the end of time. And he's like, no, I'm gonna figure out a way to fix this. That's a big task, right? And if we know anything from literature and history, that usually when people try and tackle the big problems like that, it doesn't go well, one way or the other. So there's so much promise. There's so much intrigue. His characters would be the only reason why I would come back for a season 2. He was so underutilized there at the end of the series, and then, of course, the tragic death of the actor, and it's before the show even aired. Once again, here we are staring at Disney doing something stupid with characters and actors. The whole thing with Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia and the problems we had with that, and of all the things you could be mad at J.J. Abrams about, trying to work dead Leia into, or dead Carrie Fisher into the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, now we're in a similar situation with Balon Skull. It's like, why he is, you can look at this and you can say, even with the crap that we got in the series, it's pretty clear that the second half of this story, whether it's told in another TV show or whether it's told in a series of motion pictures or whatever, he's going to go find that thing he's looking for. Right? And I'm pretty sure something really, really bad is going to happen. I want to see that, but now I don't want to see that because I don't know how Disney's going to handle his character. CGI Tarkin. Do we have enough of his voice on file that we can make one of those AI Luke Skywalker voices? Is it going to look better than that? What do we do? Do you only have him in a series long enough for him to meet his end in a dignified way to the character? It's just it's so sad to me because again, he and Shin by extension were the things that really were grabbing me in this show, that were really keeping me interested and keep me wanting to come back week after week to be Hera-splained about whatever, pulling rank and causing problems. And I was like, just give me some more Balon, give me some more Balon, And when we did get him on screen, like you had mentioned in some of your previous videos, his lightsaber battles were great. We had the dialogue, we had the banter, the back and forth, the digs that he was throwing at Ahsoka about Anakin, and the way and his relationship with Shin was interesting too, and it was clearly a master and apprentice scenario, and he spoke to her as an educator, trying to teach her, trying to instruct her. Even when she was like talking, at the end when they had to split ways, that it was almost, his disappointment, her choosing the quick path, choosing in essence the dark side, signing up with the Empire or wanting to be pursuing that type of power when he's talking about something completely different, a different type of power. Like, so much good stuff there. His character was well designed. His costume, his lightsaber, his style of fighting, the way that he delivered his lines, he was so good. He reminded me in a way of Count Dooku. Just so much gravitas with the character, and now we're never going to get the payoff. I mean, or we're not going to get as good of a payoff as we could have gotten if he hadn't died. So it's just, it hurts. It hurts a lot. I mean, because that was the one good thing, and it's gone, and where do we go from here with that?
Well, as you mentioned, we can't go anywhere with Ray Stevenson. Ahsoka season 1 should have told a complete story. It's fine to leave a few cliffhangers, a few uncertainties for season 2, but unless you tell a good and complete story in season 1, there's a good chance you won't get season 2. You won't get the film. Disney is currently in cost-cutting mode. They're suffering for their mistakes, and there's no guarantee that the financing will be there if season 1 doesn't perform well. And by all indications, it is not performing well.
Well, it's going to get a season 2, and I'll tell you why. It's going to get a season 2 because it fits into the agenda, okay? And they've cut all the other Star Wars projects. I was, I don't know if it was an article or if it was an interview. I think it was an article, but the throwaway line in the article, but it talked about how Disney cut Andor from 4 seasons to 2. And so season 2, they said it's going to have a much different feel because they're trying to pack in the 3 seasons worth of stories into 1 season. And it's like, so they took the 3 seasons that were supposed to happen next, and they've compressed those seasons into like 4 episode story arcs. Now, hopefully, that's going to produce some clarity and some real tight writing and cinematography, and we're going to get a good second season of that show. And I don't have any doubt that we will, but I'm very disappointed because it is a series that benefits from more breathing room and longer format. But the reason why they cited this is because, the cost per episode is so high, or the cost of the show is so high. And I'm thinking, it's no more or less expensive than the crap you're putting out with Mandalorian and Obi-Wan this show, and if you look at the number of crap episodes we've got in those 3 seasons, and let's throw in Book of Boba Fett. Sorry, I always forget that because of the trauma, and I don't want to black out. I want to talk about it. It only comes up during hypnosis. So those 4 shows, if you took about all the hours of television there and the billions or hundreds of millions spent on that, you could have got 4 really badass seasons of Andor, right? But instead, we got a bunch of mediocrity and a bunch of BS. And so now, of course, the fans are voting with their feet and their pocketbooks and they're leaving. And instead of people making sober decisions about where the money's going to go for Star Wars, they're still pumping money into the Acolyte. They dump money on this, Ahsoka crap, but because Ahsoka fits into their agenda and fits into the messaging that they want to put out as a company, it's going to get the money, just like Acolyte's getting the money. Those 2 shows will continue to be made until either everyone at Disney is executed, or there's a complete 180, like some investor steps in, like comes in and says, look, we're tired of losing money on this crap. You guys got to figure some stuff out, and does a wholesale clean out. But even then, that doesn't mean Star Wars is safe. I wouldn't be surprised if it's parted out and sold to Saudi princes or something. But Ahsoka's going to get the seasons. It's going to get the money because everybody down there at Lucasfilm is simpatico, and they're all on the same side of this agenda thing about the Force is female and all that junk, and so it's going to get made. I think they all fully anticipated multiple seasons of this, or at least 2 seasons of it and a movie, and Dave probably has stuff written out. Yes, I would have liked to have seen more. I wanted to hear the story, right? I wanted to hear the story that Balon was referencing. He talks about the stories at the Jedi Temple that were legends or whatever that he grew up on about this place. And I want to hear that. I want to hear what it is he's looking for. It's okay, right? Lord of the Rings is like 12 hours of movie. It's like 9,000 pages of book. But we knew in the first couple of chapters that there is a ring. It's very bad. It must be destroyed. And we're trying to figure out what to do with it. Okay, great. Now let's go on an adventure. Give me that story at the beginning. Balon shows up. Who's this guy? Oh, he's a Jedi. Is he? He's got a red lightsaber, so we're not really sure if he's a Sith. It's orange. It's kind of he's the gray area or whatever. He's got this apprentice. Who's she? Where'd she come from? What's her story? Where'd he find her? What are their motivations? Why are they helping Morgan? Right? You can have these conversations. It doesn't have to be an hour-long prologue. It doesn't have to be a crawl. It could be through the course of the first 2 or 3 episodes. We kind of get an idea. Okay, he's going to this planet to discover a thing that he's going to use to break the Jedi or break the Force or break the dark side or break the known universe and install himself as king or whatever. You don't have to achieve that in the first season. But like I said, at the end, if you show him going over the top of the hill there in Numenor and he sees Mount Doom, spitting fire. He's like, that's where we need to go, Shin. And Shin's like, oh my God, it's crazy. Right? Okay, at least we know. We have a visual. Season ends, roll credits. We're moving towards the goal. We know what the goal is. Go there to the place, find the thing, and use it to destroy the universe. Great. We're halfway there. Now we have a destination. We have an address. We have a location. We can see it. It looks scary. We didn't even get that. But I still have more interest in finding out what all that is than I don't care what happens with Ahsoka. I don't care what happens with Sabine. I don't care what happens with Ezra. Any of that. Thrawn, he's dead. His dirty troopers with the streamers, I don't care about them either. Maybe I want to know what's going on behind the gold mask guy, but even then I don't really care about that because it's all going to be nothing. It's all going to be green farts, whatever. But I really want to know what Balon's up to. And of course now, even if they had something written out, even if Dave Filoni wrote a better second season than a first season, it doesn't matter anymore. And this is twice this has happened now. If you believe the stuff that came out of Lucasfilm when Carrie Fisher died, if you believe Kathleen Kennedy and what she said, The first movie was about Han, the second movie's about Luke, and the third movie was going to be about Leia. Well, they screwed that up. They should have made the first one about her because she had a nasty habit and she was old. There you go. All right. So now we have the only interesting character in modern Star Wars outside of the cast of Andor. And thanks, Ray. We appreciate your efforts and your great acting, but I'm sure Dave is furiously rewriting it. Again, the quality of the writing that he's put forward, it's not going to be a satisfying resolution to this situation.
So your score for Ahsoka on a scale of 10?
3.
We're in agreement.
Yes, we're fully calibrated.
Aligned.
I know our numbers haven't always been in alignment over the years in our episodes. So, yes, we're fully calibrated. The hive mind is complete. Yep. It does not portend well for the brand. If all we have to look forward to is Ahsoka / Mandalorian / Acolyte and Frankenstein season 2 of Andor, yes, there will be news of cancellations, and one of them will be a cancellation of Lucasfilm itself. You've mentioned Disney is they are trying to stop the ship from sinking right now. And part of it is throwing anything overboard that isn't necessary, as well as trying to plug the leaks. There's talks about selling Marvel, selling ESPN, and
yet there's no indication that they've learned their lesson.
Oh, no.
So that while there's talk about selling divisions, there's no acknowledgement of what brought them to this point. And as you said, they're likely to fund a losing series. They're willing to continue funding the message at the same time that they're dealing with the consequences of funding the message.
Oh yeah, this is a gambler who's lost everything, but is going to borrow money because they're sure the next hand is the winning hand. And most people in the world of addiction call that rock bottom. And Disney has hit rock bottom. They're still digging. They're the alcoholic who's selling their wedding ring for a bottle of booze. Like you pick your analogy, and it's going to be sad because the entire company will be, which was once the pinnacle of power through its sheer vastness and its involvement in so many avenues of entertainment and the power of its brand, the solidity of its brand, like it was a guarantee moneymaker. And it's gone from that in just a few short years to it's going to be hollowed out, so a burned out husk of what it was. All the important, valuable things will be sold off, for pennies on the dollar in order to fund its habit, get its next fix of political correctness or wokeism or whatever you want to call it. And then eventually we're going to find it dead in a park. And that's Disney. Disney's going to be that tragic tale. Just another great iconic brand in America that has been sacrificed for ideology. Somebody's going to figure it out. Somebody's going to stop. Somebody's going to be like, maybe we shouldn't try what they're trying. Yeah, there's a lot of people like, oh, they're bringing back Iger and it's going to be different. It's like, no, you're going to get the same thing you got with Iger when he was here last time, which was what put Disney on this path in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. And he never really left. So
somehow Iger's returned.
Yeah. Indeed. Our discussion of Ahsoka, our pseudo review, our semi review of the series is over. Thank you, Sean.
That's how we're going to win, Jeff. Not fighting what we hate, saving what we love.
Thank you for watching. Check out Galactic Initiative for all things Star Wars.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, but rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other products and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.